Hello, good morning, and welcome to the Villa Park podcast. It's me, Rich, and I'm back with a bit of a special episode. I have friend of the channel, Tom Collomosse, as you can see, Mail Online, Mail Sport, Midlands correspondent here to talk about an article that he produced yesterday, or maybe wrote a little while ago, but released yesterday and posted out on X, and it did cause a little bit of controversy. So we thought we'd get the man himself on to talk about it and also give us a little bit of insight into what's going on at Villa at the moment. Make sure you smash that like button, though. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We are moving on to 5,000 subscribers. We're on the road, so please do like, subscribe, and get your comment in below. So, first of all, Tom, how are you doing? It's been a little while. I think we spoke just around the new transfer deadline day, I think end of June time. So how's it going?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks, Rich. Apart from the fact that come downstairs, it's rained overnight, and I've realised I've left the washing out. It's
Schoolboy
wasted
error,
work,
mate.
wasted work yesterday. But apart from that, quick quiz to start with. If any of you subscribers can guess what Italian shirt that is from the early 90s, just got the sponsor on, similar colour to Aston Villa. Probably have to be of a certain vintage, but not a dead easy one. So I'd be interested to see how many get it right.
Yeah, comment below your thoughts. So yes, Tom, let's talk this article, because you, as we just said before we came onto the show, Aston Villa fans can get a bit protective, and particularly at the moment, with things going so well and such excitement going for the season, we'll talk about the article, but what is generally quite a well balanced article can receive quite fierce protection or fierce criticism. So just talk us through what the general gist of the article was covering, mate.
Well, I think it was a look at Villa since the end of last season, even sort of slightly predating that, and you can't start anything like that without looking at what was happening at the end of last season and then through June, which was when Villa knew they were in this hole with profit and sustainability, and they managed to get out of it, at least for that accounting period. And they deserve credit for that, because it was a tricky spot that they were in. As you know, they sold Douglas Luiz, Amari Kellyman, and Tim Iribunum. Obviously, there were the player trades involved there. And that was a key plank of the whole summer. But I think, look, Villa are in a great spot, as you said. They're in the Champions League for the first time since it's been the Champions League. They've got one of the best managers in Europe, and the history and tradition of the club is fantastic. I think where you wonder a bit about the future is on two fronts. It's going to be a difficult season, I think, this year, because you're in the Champions League, you're in the Premier League. Unai Emery's already said trying to get the top four again. Two of the cup competitions there. And that is a hard load to manage, especially coming off the back of a summer of major tournaments. You never quite know how players are going to return from those physically, mentally. And there's going to be a bit more expectation on them, not from their own fans necessarily, but whereas last season they surprised a lot of people, I think, didn't they, with how well they did. Now people are waiting for them. And managers, other coaches have plans to stop them. I think we saw in the second half of last season, performances weren't quite as hot as they were in the first half. Now, injuries played a big part in that, of course, but there were certain signs that certain coaches had found certain ways to unlock parts of what Unai Emery does. Off the field, look, I think if you're hiring a manager like Unai Emery for a club the size of Aston Villa, you can't just hire him on the basis that Dean Smith or Steven Gerrard was hired, with the greatest of respect to both of those. This is a manager who's won multiple European trophies. He's managed Paris Saint-Germain, Arsenal, Sevilla, Valencia, really big, significant clubs in Europe. So you have to offer him a bit more. And what they've offered him is the keys to the castle, really. Mm-hmm. So, as I say in the piece, if you look at the decisions on players, mostly that's Unai Emery's decision. You know, he looks at play, he looks at Conor Gallagher. Right, I want to sign Conor Gallagher. Okay, Monchi, can you do that deal for me? Amadou Onana, I'd like to sign him. Can you do that deal for me? Staff, I think the staff that he's brought in is in double figures now. Mm-hmm. Club, mainly Spanish-speaking staff. And none of this is a bad thing necessarily. Look at the best example of it would be Sir Alex Ferguson. It's almost like a 1990s model of manager, you know, before the introduction of sporting directors and other club staff. And I actually say in the piece that I believe other Premier League managers are kind of almost envious of the control Unai Emery has, because they have to stay in their lane effectively. The problem is that when you have somebody so powerful, I do think you need people who can question them, people who can say, oh, gosh, are you sure about that? Maybe there are those people at Villa. I'm not too sure. We'll find out in the coming season. And also, you have to always be thinking about the future. And, of course, we expect Unai Emery to continue to do really well for Villa. But nothing's guaranteed. It's not guaranteed, you know. And, of course, we expect him to stay to the end of his contract at Villa. But none of that's guaranteed. And I just wonder if the Emery plan at some point goes awry or isn't working as they would want, what is the Nassef Sawiris Wes Eden's plan for the succession? What is the structure there? So post Unai Emery, it's not just scorched earth. And I think that was the point I was trying to make in the piece. You have to, it's a wonderful time for Villa, but you always have to be looking to the future. And if they win something this year, fantastic, it's great. But Unai Emery is unlikely to be Villa manager in 20 years, 10 years, you know, and you want something there. So as and when he does go, we don't have to build the whole house from scratch.
Yeah, I actually get what you were saying. And I think many people who read it and kind of thought it was, you know, pretty reasonable in terms of what it was saying. And to be fair to you, Tom, you've mentioned this a 2 or 3 times when you've been on our podcast. I mean, even when we were flying and doing well and they were talking about bringing all these people in to support Unai Emery, you were kind of saying it's great, and while everything is fantastic and you have to give Unai Emery these keys to the kingdom, there is an element of when it if and when it starts to drop off, or if and when Villa fans start to get a bit tetchy or whatever it might be, or he falls out, or if he moves. I think it was at the time where Bayern Munich were talking potentially going to talk to him, and a few other clubs, and that's what could happen. So, you know, what happens if he gets tempted by another club? Now, you've talked about other managers, Alex Ferguson, Arsene Wenger, Eddie Howe, and we're seeing at Newcastle the little bit of manoeuvring of power there, because Eddie Howe's having to maybe relinquish some of that. What's going to happen with him? So there's always a risk with everything, isn't there? I mean, in my opinion, I prefer the manager to actually sign the players, and he's going to be working with them at the end of the day. And I do prefer the eye test a little bit more than the data-driven stuff. I do, because they're experienced in the game.
But I think one should complement the other, shouldn't it?
Yes.
I think, unfortunately, it's like in football at the moment, I'm not talking about in football fans, but just within football, you've got this kind of, or certainly had this hostility from one camp towards the other. So you get what you might call your old-fashioned traditional scouts, the eye test as you describe it. Oh, all this data, it's a load of nonsense, it's snake oil, it's rubbish. And then you get the people who have the sort of data-driven background. You say, oh, what, those guys just think they can turn up, leave after an hour, and they decide to spend 20 million. What a load of rubbish! What you want ideally is a situation where both of those elements are working in harmony. But because the traditional scout, if you want, is usually from a professional football background, very often the analytics side is not immediately. You've got that conflict, haven't you? You got from the football side. What do you think? What do you know about it, guys? So I think actually, while in a perfect world, I don't think it's just the manager who should make the signings. The reality of the discord that often goes on between those two different departments means that the manager needs to have a big say, I think. The issue you get, of course, is that, if it's just all down to a manager, you get manager, and then the next one's left with, like we've seen Everton often, haven't we? The next guy comes in, he's left a squad of players that who they'll sign this slot, and on you go. I suppose a club like Brighton is where they've got it perfect, isn't it? But as my colleague Matt Barlow, as so often, made a really clever observation. We were talking about this, and he said, "Yeah, but Brighton fans don't expect Brighton to win stuff, whereas Tottenham fans, Aston Villa fans do. Aston Villa, of course, they don't expect them to win the Premier League, but end of every season, Spurs fans, Villa fans will go, oh, blimey, another season without a trophy. Still, when are we going to win something? With Brighton fans won't say that, and I think that's an important difference.
Yeah. The other thing, I guess, with Unai Emery is he's such a workaholic, and he is so focused, and because he's managed at those such top clubs, and we're so lucky to have him. But again, that there's not many managers that are like him. Like, he is the coach, he is the scout, he is the tactician, he is the man who will have one-to-one meetings with the players, he is the man who will go out and watch the opposition. Like, he literally lives and breathes and eats football for the season, and that is a special thing to have.
The off season, I would think.
Yeah,
as well.
and the off season as well. Yeah. So when we say about the data driven and the eye test, he is literally the embodiment of that. And obviously, like you said, tells Monchi to go and get those players, because if you think about the likes of Morgan Rogers, Villa fans were like, who is this kid? Why do we want him so much? And then he comes in and he's developing into such a good player. So it is so great to have him, but as you say, that kind of risk factor with the added scrutiny that's going to come into play this season, and I guess I've said this, the slight momentum shift in terms of the squad, and everything was brilliant, wasn't it? Like, going into him coming in and turning the club around after Gerrard, and then with the way we finished in the Conference League, and then moved into the next season, gone into the Champions League. The scrutiny is just slightly higher now, like you say, from other clubs, from the media, from everything else, and it's just how how Villa are going to handle that. That's I guess the question that you were raising, and then what happens, if it does go slightly off key.
I mean, I'd be interested to ask you a question, actually, because you have your finger on the pulse of what fans are thinking much more than I do, or you'll speak to a wider range of Villa fans than I would, because you're a Villa fan and I'm not. What would Villa fans be happy with this season, would you say? Would it be maybe kind of top 7 or 8, make a decent fist of the Champions League and a decent cup run, or is the expectation now that we set this benchmark of top 4, we need to keep, at least being in the conversation for that?
Yeah, I think if you ask most Villa fans, I think they understand that the Champions League and the way that the squad is set up is going to present its own challenges. So I think most Villa fans would be happy with a top 6 finish, a decent run in a domestic cup, because we've never had that in I don't know how long, and I think that does kind of irk Unai Emery a little bit. And to get through the Champions League, whatever it is, the ladder stage, get to like the playoff stage, or maybe even that last 16. So I think that would be brilliant for Villa fans. I mean, Newcastle was slightly unlucky that the top 7 didn't get any European football this season. So yeah, I think top 6, running the cup, and a decent little foray into the Champions League. I think that would be something that they would really settle for. If it ended up being like a 10th place finish or something like that, and we went out in the Champions League with a whimper, I think Unai Emery's bought more than enough time to turn that around. But it would be slightly disappointing, I think, having worked so hard to get in there.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. And what I also mentioned yesterday was that it wouldn't surprise me if they might perform maybe below sort of wider expectations domestically, but I wonder if they might exceed expectations in Europe. Now, they're not going to win the Champions League, I don't think. That would be almost like Leicester winning the Premier League. But if you want a manager who knows every inch of every other team in Europe, who's proven time and again his expertise at setting up this team to win this game in this specific set of circumstances, I think Unai Emery pretty high on that list, wouldn't he? So it wouldn't surprise me if they cause a few people a few problems in Europe. Actually, I'm relatively optimistic about how they might do. I think obviously you come up against Real Madrid, it's very difficult, isn't it, at that point? But I think, you know, when they're facing kind of mid to upper ranking teams with amounts of Champions League experience, I can see them doing all right. I really can.
Yeah, me too. And I think the way that it's set up now with the four different teams you play home and 4 different teams you play away, he would set it up strategically once we know who we're going to face, which games he can specifically target to say, right, this this number of points, for instance, will get us into that playoff position. And you can certainly see him producing those performances. And just kind of touching on another part of the article where you see the signings that have been made so far, I think kind of improve that mid level of the squad in terms of if we were to play a game after like a cup game or something after that league game, or if there are different options that he has to bring off the bench. I think the drop off isn't quite as much now in terms of the players that might come on, or he's got a few more kind of game, not changes. I think they need to develop into that, but certainly ones who can affect the game, like, a Philogene coming on for a Bailey, or a Ramsey coming in for a Rodgers, or an Emi Buendia. Hopefully he can come back a little bit more fit. So he's got a few more options. Where I think he's finding the difficulties shifting some of those players, like you mentioned, June was a big deadline. He needs to shift maybe Diego Carlos and 1 or 2 others, Leander Dendoncker, Duran, yes. And then maybe bring in a couple of positions that we thought as Villa fans would be the main priority, like the support striker, the player who can unlock the kit, unpick the lock, the competition for Ollie Watkins, or the support player for Ollie Watkins, and then this central defensive area and right back area where we really need to strengthen, and he hasn't really been able to do that. So yeah, what are you seeing in terms of the transfer potential?
Well, you're right there. There are sort of balance issues in the squad, aren't there? And he's got 3 left backs for a start, all of whom would expect to play, or think they deserve to play. Now, from what I was told, I think, might be a desire on Moreno's part to go back to Spain, but the issue you have when the Premier League, in terms of wages in Europe, is at a level so much higher than anywhere else. As soon as a player comes here, he gets on certain wages. It's then it's like kind of buying a house that loses value and you can't sell it. they're on a level of salary that then can't be afforded if they go back, or it can only be afforded by clubs who wouldn't want them. I mean, Real Madrid aren't going to sign Alex Moreno, are they?
No.
They're probably the only club who could take him. And there's a lot of midfielders, aren't there? A lot. And are some of those going to be used as, further up the pitch? I think pre-season Rodgers played up front in a couple of games, or certainly in that kind of area. Archer as well, but Archer is 4 goals in 39 Premier League games. I'm not sure that will be a big drop off from Ollie Watkins to Cameron Archer. I think much as Duran is a complex character, should we say? He's a better player than Archer.
Yeah,
he's a more potent attacking player than Archer. So I think then they need to move Duran out to get somebody else in. Right back, Nedeljkovic has done well in pre-season. I think they got high hopes for him. Cash, I've never felt like he's trusted him 100%. I think Cash has done brilliantly. I actually really like Cash because I think he's what all footballers.
He's got a great character, hasn't he? And he's always very, very.
He is. He's operating at the absolute ceiling of where he can operate at, I think. And to do that, he'll have to give absolutely every ounce of blood, sweat, and tears. And I much prefer that than someone who's, just playing below themselves because they don't take the job all that seriously. But I do think Emery would like to upgrade him. He does like that kind of centre back at right back. I'm not sure. I think Conser's the best centre half at the club.
Yeah, we need him back into central defence.
Yeah, I think, and especially when you want. I know they sort of build up in a 3 and then the other fullback goes, but if you want kind of a bit of drive on that side and you don't trust Cash, I don't think Conser's the guy to give it. It's not his natural game, is it? Going forward down the flank. Clearly an interest in Geertruida from Feyenoord. Again, it's reliant on getting others out first. You look at the profile of the squad and it reminds me of the Sevilla and Villarreal teams. It's a blooming big team now, isn't it? Nana's a big bloke, Barkley's a big bloke, Geertruida, if they sign him, big bloke. A lot of height and physical strength and power in there.
It's something I've cried out for the last, I don't know how many. Well, since we've got back into the Premier League, I thought we've been a little bit too lightweight in midfield.
Ramsey's a big lad,
to play against. Yeah, Rodgers is a big lad. Yeah. Ramsey's bulked up a bit. Berenaceri we signed is a big lad. It's probably centre back where we don't necessarily have, like, Torres is pretty tall, but he's not. He's quite slight. He's not. That's like his strength in the air. And Conser's more, the Rolls Royce type centre back. Tyrone Mings coming back, I think, could be massive. If he can get anything back to, because he kind of puts doubt in the mind of whether a forward player is going to even put a cross into the box, because he generally wins everything. Whereas at the moment we crosses are coming in left, right, and centre, and we're a little bit at sea when balls come into the box. So that's been a problem last season. So I hope he's looking to address that. But like you say, the difficulty is he's shifting these players. Diego Carlos is on big money. Leander Dendonker's on big money. We know Luca Dean's on big money, although Luca Dean, I think, is an excellent player and probably is going to be the starting left back at the moment. But there's so many players there that are on big money that their value just is dropping, and it's who's going to take them on, and that's the challenge.
Exactly right. And it's not unique to Villa, that I don't think.
Yeah.
Premier League clubs across the piece have got, it kind of goes back to what we're saying, doesn't it, about changing regime behind the scenes, and obviously you always end up with players that you don't necessarily want. I think that the Douglas Luiz deal, obviously they need to sell somebody, and he was the one, and it made sense from a business point of view, because that he was somebody they could get money for. I think, as I mentioned in the piece, there was definitely a sense that maybe he wasn't quite as tuned in as he had been. We're getting towards the end of the season. I think we remember that Olympiacos game where Emery absolutely tore a strip off him, and afterwards he denied that. Oh, I was just trying to explain this, and this. But you don't do that unless you
I
actually
knew it straight away.
can lose,
I
don't
thought
you?
he's out. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But he will take some replacing because he's able to do quite a lot of different aspects of what you'd want from a midfielder. And 10 goals, 10 assists in all comps, set piece delivery, penalties. That'll take a bit of replacing, I think. So it'll be interesting to see how he configures it. I was speaking to somebody who's very, knows Villa really well, big experienced Villa watcher, and he's wondering if they might go slightly more direct in certain games because there's not that sort of natural person to kind of necessarily pick the ball up off the back four and then link it higher up as well. I think Tielemans can do that, but he's maybe not exactly the same type of player. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of shifts there are when the season starts.
Yeah, absolutely. So, look, make sure you check out Tom's article. I know maybe the headline, maybe the little juicy bit was obviously to attract people into it, but if it's a very well thought out, well balanced article. What are you? I mean, just summing up, what are your thoughts on kind of Villa for the season, and how do you think they will fare moving forward?
I think, as I said before, I think in Europe I'm quite optimistic. I'd even say I think they might get out of the league stage, whether that be through, straight into the last 16 or through the playoff round, sorry. And they might do better than a couple of the other English clubs, I think. But, I mean, if you look at, Unai Emery is a much more experienced manager at European level than Arne Slot, let's say, and still much more experienced than Mikel Arteta. So I think, they might surprise a few people there because in Europe, I think they'll still have that surprise factor with the top clubs that they maybe had domestically last season. I think people will think, Aston Villa, they came fourth. Yeah, they're the fourth of the four English teams, but I think it might not turn out like that. Domestically, I may be a little bit more concerned. I think Ollie Watkins is an unbelievable player, not just because of what he does on the pitch, but his appearances record is remarkable. I mean, what that guy must do to keep himself in shape. He plays week after week after week after week, sort of carrying that mental, physical burden of being the main man scoring goals, and he did it. He's gone now through a summer, scored a goal which, probably changed his life a little bit. I think it would have done it even more had England won in the end. But I mean, not many people score in semi-finals of major tournaments winning goals. It doesn't happen, so it's whether it'll take a heck of a lot for him to reproduce what he did last season. If he does it 3/4 of it, he's had a brilliant season. But then you still need someone to make up that gap. So I think someone said it on Twitter the other day, actually, X the other day. A guy called Alex Berwick, who I don't know, but seems to put some very good observations.
Yeah, he does really good threads. Yeah.
And he said he was concerned that they'd kind of added a lot of players who are good to the squad, but maybe a couple who were like, okay, well, that's going to freshen it. That's going to, help push us on again. And it's difficult to sign those guys because, as we spent a lot of the pod talking about, you need to shift people out and then they need to want to come. I do think that, unfortunately for Villa, the sort of London thing is quite a big pull for players from abroad. I do think that, I think that, if you're coming from whatever country, the likelihood is that there is a community of your nationality in London, and you bring your family over. If you're, say, a Colombian footballer or something, you bring family over. It's a Colombian community in London. You can integrate. Probably Birmingham isn't probably quite so cosmopolitan, it's not a capital city. So I think that they've had difficulty with that. But yeah, I think the Premier League might be more of a challenge than last year. Europe, I think they'll surprise a few people. What I really hope is that, I know it's easier said than done with all the games they've got to play. They attack a domestic cup,
Yeah, yeah,
because it's a club that even when they were sort of struggling, they get to their quota of finals, wouldn't they? I mean, I know it's been since '96, but they've been in quite a lot of finals.
yeah. They
Even,
won the League
the
Cup.
Dean Smith
Yeah,
season,
Dean Smith. Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah. We
first
got
one,
to the
they
League Cup
got to
final.
the
Yeah,
League Cup final, that's right, and beat a good Leicester team in the semis. And
yeah,
they had the John Gregory 2000, didn't they, when
yeah,
Chelsea went to extra time, lost. So they get to the Milner one, wasn't there?
yeah.
Against
And the Tim
Man
Sherwood
United.
one.
So Sherwood, that's right. So they get to their quota of finals. It's a team with cup history, even if they've sort of stumbled the final hurdle in recent times. So I really hope, it pains me that so many teams kind of forget the domestic cups, and I think there's an opportunity there for a club like Villa, and I really hope they take it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, it's building up now. We've had 2 or 3 shows this week where we've talked about it, and that excitement is building, that trepidation is building, and we'll be here for it all through the season. I'm sure we'll catch up with you as the season goes on as well, Tom. Just if anyone needs to find you on social media, if anyone wants to check out the article that you wrote yesterday, where can people find you and where can people find it?
Yeah, it's at Tom Collomosse. That's my Twitter account, and I posted the article there yesterday, so it won't take you much scrolling to find it. Really love to know what you think about it.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, like I say, we'll be back plenty more shows this week. I've got a match preview, a new one, opposition preview called In the Away End, where I'll have Dan Lawless from West Ham Fan TV coming on. We've got our full match preview with the boys. Hopefully, we'll be talking some transfer rumours. So I'll be back with another transfer talk show. So make sure you smash the like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Get your guesses in for Tom's mug as well in the comments, and help us on the road to 5K. Thanks, Tom, for joining me. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And as always, remember, we'll follow the Villa.